Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to I guess you could say, this is going to be my first Halloween special. Ian Patrick's Halloween movie review special of all the creepy classics that he can watch by the end of the month. I said in my previous review that my horror reviews are going to be a lot more laid back. Not as outlined and detailed as my other reviews are. I'm not a huge expert on the subject, but I do have a passion for the old scary films. You're gonna see me how I am. I don't usually have the spooky webs and the candles lit in my place, but anyways, that's the setting for this October. Because for the rest of the month, I'm only going to be reviewing horror films, classic horror films between the 1930s and 1960s. And I'm excited because tonight I'm reviewing a movie that I enjoyed, and it's titled The Terror. And it stars Boris Karloff, and a little bit older Boris Karloff, because it's the 1960s. And Jack Nicholson, a young Jack Nicholson. This is very early in his career. So this movie came out in 1963. Let's see, the plot. I've mentioned in previous reviews that I have a soft spot for Napoleonic era films, anything having to do with the Napoleon army or naval wars, things like that. But I've never seen a movie where something Napoleonic meets horror. And when I read the plot of the story before watching it, because I'm like you, I want to know a little bit about what I'm about to watch. It really intrigued me. So the plot of the story is an officer in Napoleon's army gets away from his regiment. He's a little bit lost. That's how the film starts. He's on a beach, and of course this is Jack Nicholson, and he's on a horse. He doesn't know where he is, and then he sees a beautiful woman, and he follows her. He goes out into the sea thinking that she's going to drown, and really he almost drowns himself. Now, the entire story is Jack Nicholson is trying to figure out what's going on with this girl because she keeps appearing and vanishing in strange ways. And he eventually learns that he needs to go to this great castle that's somewhere on the coast because a baron, played by Boris Karloff, is supposedly he is told controlling this woman in some sort of, mind control. I don't know. But the point is that he's trying to figure out what's going on with the girl because she's beautiful, and she's played by Sandra Knight, who actually was going to be Jack Nicholson's first and only wife. He had many relationships, many relationships apparently, but she was the only woman that he would marry in real life. And in fact, towards the end of the film, apparently she was pregnant. And in some of the scenes, if you look close enough, you can tell that she's pregnant. Now, I didn't pay attention to that, but if you look, you can see that Sandra Knight was indeed pregnant. So anyways, what I seriously love the most about this film, it's a little bit cheesy, but what I really loved about the film was the settings. The picture is a little bit grainy. It wasn't filmed with the highest quality of film. But, scary horror films, sometimes that adds to it. And this movie does get beat up, but I enjoyed it. I thought the acting was superb. Boris Karloff and a young Jack Nicholson could act pretty well. And I actually thought of The Shining a few times with the scenes where he goes to the castle. And I thought of The Shining because there are scenes of Jack Nicholson just walking around this huge empty castle, and it just reminded me, of course, of him walking around the huge hotel in The Shining looking for something. And in this movie, The Terror, he's looking for the girl, trying to figure out what's going on. And I don't want to give too much of the story away, of course, because I want you to see it. In fact, in my horror reviews, all I'm going to do is say, I'm not going to give a rating of stars or anything like that. I'm going to say, I recommend for you to see it, or this movie was trash and don't see it. But I'm going to recommend you to see this movie. Now, interesting little fact is the French uniform that Jack Nicholson is wearing in the movie was actually the same exact uniform that Marlon Brando wore in Desiree. And also, this movie was directed by Roger Corman, who is very well known for directing all the Edgar Allan Poe movies that came out, all those Vincent Price movies, and I actually have not seen them. I'm definitely planning on watching at least some of them this October and doing some reviews on them. So if you would like to recommend which ones are the best or whatever, be sure to write that in the comments, or what you would like me to see me review. So, and also, this movie was directed a little bit by Francis Ford Coppola, which is really interesting. And also Jack Nicholson played a little bit of part in directing the film as well. And you can kind of tell that the movie was crammed because apparently they had just finished, the same director, Roger Corman, they had just finished directing, The Raven. And they still had the set. They still had the castle and everything. And whatever actors were still there that worked on The Raven, Roger Corman was just like, okay, you know what, we have 3 days, let's get another picture done. So Jack Nicholson and Boris Karloff, they were both in The Raven, and so he used them in this, The Terror. So it's interesting that he decided to do that kind of last second. And actually, Boris Karloff had this to say about the whole ordeal, because during the process of filming this movie, they were tearing down the set. So they were a little bit on a time limit, and Boris Karloff had this to say about the director. Corman had the sketchiest outline of the story. I read it and begged him not to do it. He said, "That's all right, Boris. I know what I'm going to do. I want you for 2 days on this." Boris Karloff says, "I was in every shot, of course. Sometimes I was just walking through, and then I would change my jacket and I would walk back. He nearly killed me on the last day. He had me in a tank of cold water for about 2 hours. After he got me in the can, he suspended operations and went off and directed 2 or 3 operations." And he says, operations to get the money, I guess. And Boris Karloff does have this to say, which I totally agree with. "The sets were so magnificent. As they were being pulled down around our ears, Roger was dashing around with me and a camera, 2 steps ahead of wreckers. It was very funny." So they were rushing while they were tearing down the set just to get it done in 3 days. In fact, they filmed all of Boris Karloff's scenes in just 3 days. But those are just little fun facts. I hope you all enjoy my Halloween set that I have for the month. I know I like it a lot. It gets a little bit hot in here, but I'm not sure what I'm going to watch next. I'm going to watch something after this review, actually. Another scary movie. we're kind of getting towards the end of the month, so I have a lot to do. But stay in the dark when you watch these movies, because it always makes horror films much better. Good night, guys.